All right, so okay, so we're getting started here. Shabbat shalom to everybody, and good morning. We have again we have our Torah portion for this morning is Vayetze, and he went out, and that spans the Torah reading spans Genesis chapter 28 verse 10 through chapter 32 verse 2, and then we have from the Haftorah prophets reading we have Hosea chapter 11 verse 7 through chapter 14 verse 9, and then from the Brit Hadasha we have the Gospel of John chapter 1 verses 19 through 51. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just open up with prayer here and maybe a song or two, and then we'll get started with our reading. So Father, yeah, we thank you for another Shabbat together. We thank you for this set apart day that, like we just read, that in 6 days you created the heavens and the earth and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day, and you set it apart, and then you invite us to rest with you on that day and gather around your table, read your word, and fellowship together. So we thank you for this day, and we pray for anointing and blessing over everyone in the Mishpachah, in the body of Messiah today, wherever they may be, and in the homes and the congregations, home fellowships, or wherever, Father, for shalom today, and that you will scatter the enemy away from our tents and our dwelling places, and that we may we have one accord today. In Yeshua's name, amen. All right. Let's see if I can. I'm going to do the Shabbat Shalom song, okay? Richard, you got one too?
Yeah, do Shabbat Shalom song. I got a shofar right here, and I got a song I could do here after you do your Shabbat song. If nobody else has a shofar, I'll.
Bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, bim, bam, bam, bim, 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 bam, bim, 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 bam. Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom, Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Hallelujah.
Shabbat Shalom. I will worship with all of my heart, all of my heart. I will praise you, I will praise you, all of my strength, all of my strength. I will seek you, I will seek you, all of my days, all of my days. I will follow, I will follow all of your ways, all of your ways. And I will give you all my worship, and I will give you all my praise. You alone I long to worship, you alone are worthy you all my praise. You alone I long to worship. You alone are worthy of my praise. I will give you all my worship. I will give you all my praise. You alone I long to worship. You alone are worthy of our praise.
Hallelujah, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Shabbat shalom to those just joining us. We are going to get started here in our Torah reading now. And I guess I'll go ahead and just start out in chapter 28. I'm posting the scriptures again in the sidebar there for you. I'll go ahead and start on Genesis chapter 28. And we've already got some other readers for the rest of that. So we'll just read. We're going to read through that portion, Vayetze, and he went out. Genesis chapter 28, verse 10 through chapter 32, verse 2. And when we're finished reading that, then we can discuss that together. And if anybody has any comments or anything to share about that before we go on to the Haftorah and the Brit. Okay, so whenever you go to read, just let us know what version you're reading from so we can all follow along and reference that later if we need to. And we're going to try to stay on topic today and not get too far off on tangents and all that, and just keep it moving forward for the interest of time, because I know that everybody wants to spend time with their family today too, and maybe has other fellowships or things that they're doing today as well. So Bereshit chapter 28 verse 10. I'm reading from the ISR, the Scriptures 2009 edition. And it says, and Yaakov went out, Vayetze, and Yaakov went out from Beersheba and went toward Haran. And he came upon a place and stopped over for the night, for the sun had set. And he took one of the stones of that place and put it at his head, and he lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed and saw a ladder set upon the earth, and its top reached to the heavens, and saw messengers of Elohim going up and coming down on it. And see, Yahweh stood above it and said, I am Yahweh Elohim of Abraham your father, and the Elohim of Yitzchak. The land on which you are lying, I give it to you and your seed. And your seed shall be as the dust of the earth, and you shall break forth to the west and to the east, to the north and the south. And all the clans of the earth shall be blessed in you and in your seed. And see, I am with you, and shall guard you wherever you go, and shall bring you back to this land, for I am not going to leave you until I have done what I have spoken to you. And Yaakov awoke from his sleep and said, truly Yahweh is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place! This is none other than the house of Elohim, and this is the gate of the heavens. And Yaakov rose early in the morning and took the stone that he had put at his head, set it up as a standing column, and poured oil on top of it. And he called the name of that place Bethel. However, the name of that city had been Luz previously. And Yaakov made a vow, saying, seeing Elohim is with me, and has kept me in this way that I am going, and has given me bread to eat, and a garment to put on, when I have returned to my father's house in peace, and Yahweh has been my Elohim, then this stone which I have set as a standing column shall be Elohim's house, and of all that you give me I shall certainly give a tenth to you. All right, go ahead, brother.
Then I'm reading from the New American Standard Version. Then Jacob went on his land of the sons of the east, and he looked and saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep were lying there, watered the flocks. Now the stone on the mouth of the well was large. When all the flocks were gathered there, they would then roll the stone away from the mouth of the well and water the sheep, and put the stone back in its place on the mouth of the well. And Jacob said to them, "My brother, where are you from?" And they said, "We are from Haran." And he said to them, "Do you know Laban the son of Nahor?" And they said, "We know him." And he said to them, "Is it well with him?" And they said, "It is well. And behold, Rachel his daughter is coming with the sheep." And he said, "Behold, it is still high day. It is not time for the livestock to be gathered. Water the sheep and go pasture them." But but they said, "We cannot until all the flocks are gathered." And they roll the stone from the mouth of the well. Then we water the sheep. While he was still speaking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, and she was a shepherdess. And it came about when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went up and rolled the stone from the mouth of the well, and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and lifted his voice and wept. And Jacob told Rachel that he was a relative of her father, and that he was Rebekah's son. And she ran and told her father. So it came about when Laban heard the news of Jacob, his sister's son, that he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Then he related to Laban all these things. Then Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." And he stayed with him a month. Then Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. And Leah's eyes were weak, but Rachel was beautiful and of form and face. Now Jacob loved Rachel, so he said, "I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel." And Laban said, "It is better that I give her to you than that I should give her to another man. Stay with me." So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and then they seemed to him but a few days because of his love for her. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife, for my time is completed, that I may go in to her." And Laban gathered all the men of the place and made a feast. Now it came about in the evening that he took his daughter Leah and brought her to him, and Jacob went into her. Laban also gave his maid Zilpah to his daughter Leah as a maid. So it came about in the morning that, behold, it was Leah. And he said, "Laban, what is this you have done to me? Was it not Rachel that I served with you? Why then have you deceived me?" But Laban said, "It is not the practice of our place to marry off the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week of this one, and I will give you the other also, for the service which you shall serve with me for another 7 years." And Jacob did so and completed her week. But he gave him his daughter Rachel as his wife. Laban also gave his maid Bilhah to his daughter Rachel as her maid. So Jacob went into Rachel, and indeed he loved Rachel more than Leah, and he served with Laban for another 7 years. Now the Lord saw that Leah was unloved, and he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son and named him Reuben. For she said, "Because the Lord has seen my affliction, surely now my husband will love me." Then she conceived again and bore a son and said, "Because the Lord has heard that I am unloved, and has therefore given me this son also. So she named him Simon. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will become attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore he was named Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she named him Judah. Then she stopped barren.
This is the Good News Translation, the U.S. Edition, chapter 30. But Rachel had not borne Jacob any children, so she became jealous of her sister and said to Jacob, give me children or I will die. Jacob became angry with Rachel and said, I can't take the place of God. He is the one who keeps you from having children. She said, here's my slave Bilhah. Sleep with her so that she can have a child for me. In this way, I can become a mother through her. So she gave Bilhah to her husband, and he had intercourse with her. Bilhah became pregnant and bore Jacob a son. Rachel said, God has judged in my favor. He has heard my prayer and has given me a son. So she named him Dan. Bilhah became pregnant again and bore Jacob a second son. Rachel said, I have fought a hard fight with my sister, but I have won. So she named him Naphtali. When Leah realized that she had stopped having children, she gave her slave Zilpah to Jacob as his wife. Then Zilpah bore Jacob a son. Leah said, I have been lucky, so she named him Gad. Zilpah bore Jacob another son, and Leah said, how happy I am. Now women will call me happy. So she named him Asher. During the wheat harvest, Reuben went into the fields and found mandrakes, which he brought to his mother Leah. Rachel said to Leah, please give me some of your son's mandrakes. Leah answered, isn't it enough that you have taken away my husband? Now you are even trying to take away my son's mandrakes. Rachel said, if you will give me your son's mandrakes, you can sleep with Jacob tonight. When Jacob came in from the fields in the evening, Leah went out to meet him and said, you are going to sleep with me tonight because I have paid for you with my son's mandrakes. Sorry. So he had intercourse with her that night. God answered Leah's prayer, and she became pregnant and bore Jacob a 5th son. Leah said, God has given me my reward because I gave my slave to my husband. So she named her son Issachar. Leah became pregnant again and bore Jacob a 6th son. She said, God has given me a fine gift. Now my husband will accept me because I've borne him 6 sons. So she named him Zebulun. Later she bore a daughter whom she named Dinah. Then God remembered Rachel. He answered her prayer and made it possible for her to have children. She became pregnant and gave birth to a son. She said, God has taken away my disgrace by giving me a son. May the Lord give me another son. So she named him Joseph. Jacob's bargain with Laban. After the birth of Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, let me go so that I can return home. Give me my wives and children that I have earned by working for you, and I will leave. You know how well I have served you. Laban said to him, let me say this. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. Name your wages and I will pay them. Jacob answered, you know how I have worked for you and how your flocks have prospered under my care. The little you had before I came has grown enormously, and the Lord has blessed you wherever I went. Now it is time for me to look out for my own interests. What shall I pay you? Laban asked. Jacob answered, I don't want any wages. I will continue to take care of your flocks if you agree to this suggestion. Let me go through all your flocks today and take every lamb and every spotted or speckled young goat. That is all the wages I want. In the future, you can easily find out if I have been honest. When you come to check up on my wages, if I have any goat that isn't speckled or spotted or any sheep that isn't black, you will know that it has been stolen. Laban answered, agreed. We will do as you suggest. But that day Laban removed the male goats that had stripes or spots and all the females that were speckled and spotted or which had white on them. He also removed all the black sheep. He put his sons in charge of them, and then went away from Jacob with this flock as far as he could travel in 3 days. Jacob took care of the rest of Laban's flocks. Jacob got green branches of poplar, almond, and plane trees and stripped off some of the bark so that the branches had white stripes on them. He placed these branches in front of the flocks at their drinking troughs. He put them there because the animals mated when they came to drink. So when the goats bred in front of the branches, they produced young that were streaked, speckled, and spotted. Jacob kept the sheep separate from the goats and made them face in the direction of the streaked and black animals of Laban's flock. In this way, he built up his own flock and kept it apart from Laban's. When the healthy animals were mating, Jacob put the branches in front of them at the drinking trough so that they would breed among the branches. But he did not put the branches in front of the weak animals. Soon Laban had all the weak animals, and Jacob all the healthy ones. In this way, Jacob became very wealthy. He had many flocks, slaves, camels, and donkeys.
This is the ISR 2009, the scriptures. And he heard the words of Laban's son, saying, Jacob has taken away all that was our father's, and from what belonged to our father, he has made all this wealth. And Jacob would look at the face of Laban and see that it was not toward him as before. And Judah probably said to Jacob, return to the land of your father and to your relatives, and I am with you. And Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah to the field to his flock, and said to them, I see your father's face, that is not toward me as before, but the Elohim of my father has been with me. And you know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, but Elohim did not allow him to do evil to me. When he said this, the speckled are your wages. Then all the flocks bore speckled. And when he said this, the streaked are your wages. Then all the flocks bore streaked. So Elohim has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. And it came to be at the time when the flock conceived that I lifted my eyes and looked in a dream. I saw the rams which leaped upon the flocks were streaked, speckled, and molted. And the messenger of Elohim spoke to me in a dream, saying, Jacob, and I said, Here I am. Here I am. And he said, lift your eyes now and see all the rams which leap on the flocks are streaked, speckled, and molted. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the El of Bethel, where you anointed the standing column, and where you made a vow to me. Now rise up, get out of this land, return to the land of your relatives. And Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, do we still have any portion or inheritance in our father's house? We not reckoned by him as strangers, for he has sold us, and also entirely consumed our silver. For all the wealth which Elohim has taken from our father is ours and our children's. Now then, do whatever Elohim has told you. So Jacob rose and put his sons and his wives on camels. He drove off all his livestock and all his possessions which he had acquired, his property of the livestock which he had acquired in Paddan Aram, to go his father Yitzhak in the land of Canaan. And then Laban had gone to shear his sheep. Rachel stole the house idols that were her father's. And Jacob deceived Laban, the Araman, because he did not inform him that he was about to flee. And he fled with all that he had, and he rose up and passed over the river and healed toward the mountains of Gilead. And on the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. Then he took his brothers with him and pursued him for 7 days' journey, and he overlooked him in the mountains of Gilead. But in a dream by night, Elohim came to Laban the Araman and said to him, guard yourself that you do not speak to Jacob either good or evil. Then Laban took Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the mountains, and Laban with his brothers pitched in the mountains of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done, that you have deceived me, and driven my daughters off like captives taken with the sword? Why did you flee secretly and deceive me, and not inform me, and I would have sent you away with joy and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And you did not allow me to kiss my sons and my daughters. Now you have been foolish to do this. It is in the power of my hand to do evil to you. But the Elohim of your father spoke to me last night, saying, guard yourself, that you do not speak to Jacob either good or evil. And now you have gone because you greatly long for your father's house. But why did you steal my mighty ones? And Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I said, lest you tear your daughters away from me. With whomever you find your mighty ones, do not let him live in the presence of our brothers. See for yourselves what and take it with you. For Jacob did not know that had stolen them. And Laban went to Jacob's tent, and into Laban's tent, Leah's tent, and into the tents of the 12 female servants, but he did not find them. And he came out of Leah's tent and entered Rael's tent. Now Rael had taken the house idols and put them in the camel saddle and sat on them. And Laban searched all about the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, let it not displease my master that I am unable to rise before you, for the way of woman is with me. And he searched, but did not find the house idols. And Jacob was wroth and contended with him. And Jacob answered and said to Laban, what is my transgression? What is my sin, that you have hotly pursued me? Now that you have searched all my goods, what have you found? All of your household goods? Set it here before my brothers and your brothers, and let them decide between the two of us. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried their young. I have not eaten the rams of your sheep. That which was torn by beast I did not bring to you. I myself bore the loss of it. You required it from my hand, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. Thus I was. By day the heat soon consumed me, and the frost by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served your 14 years for 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Unless the Elohim of my father, the Elohim of Abraham, and the fear of Yitzhak had been with me, you would now have sent me away empty-handed. Elohim has seen my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rendered judgment last night. And Laban answered and said to Jacob, these daughters are my daughters, and these children are my children, and this flock is my flock, and all that you see is mine. But what shall I do today to those, my daughters, or to their children whom they have borne? And now come, let us make a covenant, you and I, and it shall be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a standing column. And Jacob said to his brothers, gather stones and take them. And they took stones and they made a heap, and they ate there on the heap. And Laban called it Yegar Sadutha, but Jacob called it Galad. And Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. That is why his name was called Galad. Also Mitzvah, because he said, let Yudevave watch between you and me when we are out of each other's sight. If you afflict my daughters, or if you take otherwise besides my daughters, although no man is with us, see Elohim as witness between you and me. And Laban said to Jacob, see this heap and see this standing column which I have placed between you and me. This heap is and this standing column is a witness that I do not pass beyond this heap to you, and you do not pass beyond this heap and this standing column to me for evil. The Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Nahor, and the Elohim of their father rule between us. And Jacob swore by the fear of his father Yitzhak. And Jacob slaughtered a slaughtering on the mountain and called his brothers to eat bread. And they ate bread and spent the night on the mountain. And Laban rose up early in the morning and kissed his sons and daughters and blessed them. And Laban left and returned to his place. And Jacob went on his way, and the messengers of Elohim met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is the camp of Elohim." And he called the name of the place Mahanaim.
All right, very good. Father, we thank you for your Torah scriptures here, and we pray that we can rightly divide your word here, and that we have shalom as we discuss these things together. And as iron sharpens iron, so one sharpens another. In Yeshua's name, we pray that we will see the weightier matters of Torah here, and that we're all blessed and edified by the reading of your word and the studying of your word today. In Yeshua's name, amen. Okay, anybody have any thoughts or comments or questions about the Torah reading for today so far?
Well, I just wanted to say that
I'm heading out.
all right, that that they knew about genetics way back then, especially being sheep herders, because how that he said, well, I'll take all the ones of this color, and you take the ones of the spots and all that other stuff like that, right? So they knew about genetics, right? So at the same time, right, when he's having all these children with his wives and stuff like that, right? That he knew which ones were from which wife or whatever, because let's say one had blonde hair or whatever. But I'm just thinking that right now, like we have like the DNA tests and stuff like that, and like, whose son is this? Is this your father or is that your father, right? But back then they already had a genetics test. It's like, we'll see which one has spots, which one is all black or whatever, So I just think that that's interesting that we knew about genetics like so far long ago, so long ago. So that's all.
Shalom, everyone. I have a question. What does it mean when Laban said to fulfill her week? What is that? I mean, that's the only time we've ever heard that in the Bible. What does it mean?
Yeah, I believe that's a glimpse at what the practice was of that the of the whole wedding, the wedding feast, and being like a week-long celebration. Not necessarily that that's commanded in Torah, but it seemed that was their cultural practice, was that they had a week-long celebration whenever there was a wedding, and so and then we see that reflected in the of course in the Sukkot, the feast of Ingathering. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
Jacob, were you saying that what's it mean that her eyes were weak?
No. He said Laban said to fulfill Leah's week, and I was
okay.
just know what that means, because I don't hear anybody doing anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I misheard.
We don't hear about that nowadays. I mean, we don't even know what it means.
It's been lost. Samson did that. Remember the riddle that Samson put on his guest? He said, at the end of the 7 days of my wedding feast, if you can solve my riddle by the 7th day. 7 days is a practice. It's a wedding festival, just like Sukkot. It's a wedding feast. Marriage of the Supper Lamb, it's a 7-day festival. It's a feast. There's a covenant made over the slaughtering of an animal, just like Hebrews 9 says, verses 16 through 18. Over the death of. A covenant is not established unless it's over the death of. And they had a wedding feast. It's 7 days. It's all throughout the scriptures. There's little breadcrumbs to it. Samson's one of them. Revelations talks about it. It's the picture of Sukkot, like Brother Chris said. That's a wedding feast. It's a covenantal festival.
The entire wedding, like, takes, lasts like 7 days, like the partying and everything lasts for the entire 7 days.
Yeah, it's supposed to.
That's cool.
Yeah, where is Samson's story? Is it in Judges or let's see here. I'll post it in here, the reference to it in Samson's story when I find it. Okay, it's going to be in Judges 14. Judges 14:17. And she wept before him the 7 days while their feast lasted. And it came to be on the seventh day that he informed her, because she pressed him to know, that she then explained the riddle to the sons of her people. There you see witness of their wedding feast being 7 days. If you look in the book of Tobit, the book of Tobit has the woman who, every time her father and mother married her to a man, the man died before they completed the wedding feast, before they could consummate the marriage. I don't know how many of them died, but so the one Tobit or Tobiah, who overcame and lived, he did a wedding festival twice. They did it at her parents' house, and then when he took his bride to his parents' house, they did another 7 day wedding festival. So I find it interesting how humble the women were back then, and how lacking of jealousy they would have to be to give their maidservants into their husband, and that our Father blessed them when they overcame the jealousy, because Rahel didn't win, as it says in the scripture. She didn't have more children than her sister. She overcame the wrestling, and she gave forth that which the only thing was in her hand to give, so that she could bear up children. And I find it interesting that people would bear up children for another, like as in the duty of the brother is required of in the Torah, by which way Messiah's bloodline came through Boaz and Ruth. I find it interesting that these women back then similarly made such a sacrifice to bear up their child on another one's lap, as Ruth put it on the child on her mother's lap, and the people of the land rejoiced and said, a child has been born to Naomi. So in essence, like Ruth bared up a child almost like as a maidservant of Naomi, and the child was considered to be Naomi's child, because that child was being raised up on behalf of Naomi's deceased husband and sons, and to inherit her husband and sons' property and belongings. So I find it interesting that, and similarly, here are two instances that were witnessed where these women did such in this matter with Rahel and Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah. So as Sarah, interestingly, she wasn't told of her um, having a son until the very next chapter, after she had given Hagar, um, her maidservant, to her husband. I just find the humbleness of them very interesting. It's missing today.
Something that stood out to me a little bit was the rivalry, like with Leah and Rachel. And that's why I kind of chuckled a little bit, because of the whole mandrakes comment where they kind of negotiated. And I just thought, I don't know, it just seemed like a rivalry with the women and sisters and stuff like that. And almost like competition with having children. That's all I got.
You know, in in Nigeria, I remember that was one of the problems. I remember I left Nigeria when I was 12 years old, and I remember I can never forget. There was always these two. My parents, they owned 3 buildings, and they rented. They divided into sections, and they rented all out. And they lived in the middle on the top. It was 2 floor. It was 2 stories building, 3 of them. And I every day I remember all the neighbors would come out like, oh my goodness, here they go again, here they go again. That's what they always say, like 1 2 2 better, 1 2 2 better. I remember that so much in my language. That means here we go again. That's like a big thing in our neighborhood. And it's always these 2 women that are fighting over their husband and their children, and they all lived in the same house. They all lived. He was married to 2 of them, and they all lived in the same house. And he's always, but the kids got along. The kids were always all get together and all the kids, but they're always fighting and always screaming, and you see them outside yelling at each other. It's like it never ends. And my mom and dad, sometimes we'll call them over, and I remember my parents are just in the living room asking what's going on, and they're always fighting over, whose turn is it to cook for them, and one of them cooked but won't share the food with the children. It was just a mess. So when I see this, I'm just like, oh my goodness, it looks like the same thing that's happening, and the noise it's always so loud. They just always screaming at each other. So it's just best you stick with one woman, and enjoy the rest of your life, because 2 is just a headache. Not to talk about 3 or 4 or 5. Oh my goodness.
So yeah, I'm just curious. Anybody else kind of see a little bit of a foreshadow there in Genesis chapter 29, verse 10? It says, "And it came to be when Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban, his mother's brother, that Jacob went near and rolled the stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban, his mother's brother." I don't know. I just got kind of a picture of the stone being rolled away from the tomb, with Yeshua. It's kind of cool. It may not be that's a foreshadow, but it just reminded me of that. Tobiah, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry, brother. I had my hand up from a while ago. I didn't put it down yet.
All right, go ahead, Brother John.
Well, I was just trying to find some information, but when when they take the baby and they put the baby on the lap of the new mother, right? Okay, so it's not her birth child, but it's going to be hers through the surrogate. And when they put the baby on the lap of the new mother, kind of remind me of like the Jewish custom during the Brit, during the circumcision, right? Where they oftentimes they have like something like 3 types of godparents, but I forgot they all have like different names. But the one godparent, they don't call it godparents; they have different names for them. But the one godparent, when during the circumcision, right, they put the baby on the one particular godparent's lap, right, and that's like almost like saying, well, this is going to be my godchild in a sense. So when I think there might be something to that is similar, since the baby's put on the lap and one's accepting that child as their responsibility in a sense. So I don't know what it's called, but I know it's during some of the Jewish Brits or circumcisions. So if somebody wants to look that up or something like that, they could.
right. Anybody else have any thoughts on this, Pastor? I got a question put out there. We can't really, we can only get a glimpse here of what happened, but when it says that Rachel took the idols from her father's house, from Laban's house, and hid them, and it seems Jacob wasn't aware of it, of course. Do you think she did that because he was trying to bring some kind of misfortune upon her father, or that she was actually, she was esteeming them for herself? Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Well, not a lot of people don't read the Apocryphas, but Book of Yasher addresses that, because I wondered that for a long time too. In the Book of Yasher, it says that she had took them because her father divined by them, and she didn't want him to use them to find out where they went, to locate them, because she knew that Jacob wanted to leave without him following after them, and that she knew that he used them to divine by them, so she took them that he wouldn't use them. But that he had other house idols that she was unaware of, and he used them and divined by them to locate their whereabouts. I was troubled by it. I never seen any sign of her. Um, I was like, ooh, why would you want to take house idols? Like, oh, yuck, And then I never saw any sign of her like being covetous or anything like that. So it kind of concerned me. Why would she do such a thing? And when I read that, it eased me.
Yeah, it seems that Jacob kind of like pronounces an early death over her in what he says about that too, not knowing that she had them.
Yeah, because I would feel that way if somebody came to me like, well, if some member of my house has got somebody's house idols, I would assume, like, wow, that's dangerous. That's not of our father, and I'd be upset that somebody of my house would want to mess with such things, not understanding, the real reason.
At the end of the portion, it mentions the place Mahanaim, which is two camps, and we can kind of see a picture of the two houses, the two kingdoms. Kind of a shadow picture of that within these two sisters, Leah and Rachel. And I know they had their servants as well, but we see that Yehuda came from Leah, and Yosef and eventually Ephraim, Manasseh came from Rachel, and and we're going to see a little bit more of that in the Haftarah reading of Hosea here in a little bit. Any other thoughts or comments on this portion here? All right, well, we can go on to the prophet Hosea, and I don't know if we have maybe two different people that would like to read this. Maybe the first person can take Hosea chapter 11, verse 7, and read through chapter 12. And then the second person can read 13, and then chapter 14 to verse 9. And so I don't know if two people would like to read, they haven't read yet.
I'll go ahead and start with 11:7. Take it for a while.
No, just through the end of 12.
Just to make sure that our verses are the same in our Bibles. Does the 7 in your scripture start with "For my people persist in its defection from me," or something like that?
Yes. Some people might have their verses off by one, but we can figure it out.
Okay, I just want to make sure because it's like it's picking up in the middle of a thought. Starting with verse 7. For my people persist in its defection from me. When it is summoned upward, it does not rise at all. How can I give you up, O Ephraim? How surrender you, O Israel? How can I make you like Admah, render you like Zeboim? I have had a change of heart. All my tenderness is stirred. I will not act on my wrath, will not turn to destroy Ephraim, for I am Yah, not man. The Holy One in your midst, I will not come in fury. The Lord will roar like a lion, and they shall march behind him. When he roars, his children shall come, fluttering out of the west. They shall flutter from Egypt like sparrows, and from the land of Assyria like doves, and I will settle them in their homes, declares the Lord. Ephraim surrounds me with deceit, the house of Israel with guile. But Judah stands firm with God and is faithful to the Holy One. Ephraim tends the wind and pursues the gale. He is forever adding illusion to calamity. Now they make a covenant with Assyria. Now oil is carried to Egypt. The Lord once inflicted Judah and punished Jacob for his conduct. Requited him for his deeds. In the womb he tried to supplant his brother. Grown to manhood, he strove with a divine being. He strove with an angel and prevailed. The other had to weep and implore him. At Bethel, Jacob would meet him, there to commune with him. Yet the Lord, the God of hosts, must be invoked as Lord, or Jehovah. You must return to your God, practice goodness and justice, and constantly trust in your God. A traitor who uses false balances, who loves to overreach. Ephraim thinks, I have become rich, I have gotten power. All my gains do not amount to an offense which is real guilt. I, the Lord, have been your God, ever since the land of Egypt. I will let you dwell in your tents again, as in the days of old, when I spoke to the prophets, for I granted many visions, and spoke parables throughout the prophets. As for Gilead, it is worthless, and to no purpose. They have been sacrificing oxen to Gilgal. The altars of those are also like stone heaps upon a plowed field. Then Jacob had to flee to the land of Aram. There Israel served for a wife. For a wife he had to guard sheep. But when the Lord brought Israel up from Egypt, it was through a prophet. Through a prophet they were guarded. Ephraim gave bitter offense, and his Lord cast out his crimes upon him and requited him for his mockery. Somebody else wants to take it from 13. Okay, I'll continue.
Okay, go ahead.
When Ephraim spoke piety, he was exalted in Israel, but he incurred guilt through Baal, and so he died. And now they go on sinning, and they have been made and they have made them molten images, idols by their skill, from their silver, wholly from the work of craftsmen. Yet for these they appoint men to sacrifice. They are wont to kiss calves. Assuredly, they shall be like morning clouds, like dew so early gone, like chaff whirled away from the threshing floor, and like smoke from the lattice. Only I, the Lord, have been your God, ever since the land of Egypt. You have never known a true God but me. You have never had a helper other than me. I looked after you in the desert, in a thirsty land. When they grazed, they were sated. When they were sated, they grew haughty, and so they forgot me. So I am become like a lion to them, like a leopard I lurk on the way, like a bear robbed of her young I attack them, and rip open the casings of their hearts. I will devour them there like a lion. The beasts of the field shall mangle them. You are undone, O Israel. You had no help but me. Where now is your king? Let him save you. Where are the chieftains in all your towns for whom you demanded, give me a king and officers? I'll give you a king in my ire, and take them away in my wrath. Ephraim's guilt is bound up, his sin is stored away. Pangs of childbirth assail him, and the babe is not wise. For this is no time to survive at the birth stools of babes. From Sheol itself I will save them, redeem them from the very depth. Redeem them from the very death. Where, O death, are your plagues, your pestilence? Where, O Sheol? Revenge shall be far from my thoughts, for though he flourish among the reeds, a blast, a wind of the Lord, shall come up, blowing from the wilderness. His fountain shall be parched, his spring dried up. That wind shall plunder treasures, every lovely objects. Samaria must bear her guilt, for she has defied her God. They shall fall by the sword, their infants shall be dashed to death, and their women with child ripped open. Return, O Israel, to the Lord your God, for you have fallen because of your sin. Take words with you and return to the Lord. Say to him, forgive all guilt and accept what is good. Instead of bulls, we will pay the offering of our lips. Assyria shall not save us. No more will we ride on steeds, nor ever again will we call our handiwork our God, since in you alone orphans find pity. How far am I going here? To 9. I will heal their affliction. Generally, I will take them back in love, for my anger has turned away from them. I will be to Israel like dew. He shall blossom like a lily. He shall strike a root like a Lebanon tree. His boughs shall spread out far. His beauty shall be like the olive trees, his fragrance like that of Lebanon. They who sit in his shade shall be revived, and they shall bring to life a new grain. They shall blossom like the vine. His scent shall be like the wine of Lebanon. Ephraim shall say, What more have I to do with idols? When I respond and look to him, I become like a verdant cypress.
All right, very good. Thank you, brother. So this is a kind of again, this is Yah addressing, Ephraim, the northern kingdom, and their waywardness, and we see kind of a picture of that with these two sisters that Jacob took as wives, Leah and Rachel. And again, it's interesting that Rachel, she it seems that she died prematurely, maybe in the matter of those idols, that she had taken, and Yaakov pronouncing that over her unknowingly. And again, Ephraim or Yosef, the northern kingdom, kind of perishing, before Yehuda because they kept going after other mighty ones and trusting in idols, and we see Yah's rebuke of that. But then we also see his mercy, where he says that he will redeem them from Sheol, redeem them from death. And then we see this where he says, "Oh, death, where is your sting?" So, any thoughts or comments on this portion from the prophets? Go ahead, Brother Tobias.
No, once again, I didn't put my hand down, brother. Sorry.
All right, if there's no comments on that, we can go on to the Gospel of John there. I believe Brother Anthony said he would read that for us. So just let us know what version you have, brother. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, it is the King James Version, and it says, "And this is the record of John, when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, 'Who art thou?' And he confessed and denied not, but confessed, 'I am not the Christ.' And they asked him, 'What then? Art thou Elias?' And he saith, 'I am not.' 'Art thou that prophet?' And he answered, 'No.' Then said they unto him, 'Who art thou? That we may give an answer to them that sent us. What sayest thou of thyself?' He said, 'I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, Make straight the way of Yah, as said the prophet Esaias.' And they which were sent were of the Pharisees. And they asked him and said unto him, Why baptize thou then? Thou be not that Christ, nor Elias, neither that prophet. John answered them, saying, I baptize with water, but there standeth one among you, whom ye know not. He it is, who coming after me is preferred before me, whose shoe latchet I am not worthy to unloose. These things were done in Bethabara beyond Jordan, where John was baptizing. The next day John seeth Yahushua coming unto him, and saith, Behold, the Lamb of Yah, which taketh away the sins of the world. This is he of whom I said, After me cometh the man, which is preferred before me, for he was before me, and I knew him not, but that he should be made manifest to Israel. Therefore am I come, baptizing with water. All right, I'm scrolling down here. Okay. And John bare record, saying, I saw the Spirit descending from heaven like a dove, and it abode upon him. And I knew him not, but he that sent me to baptize with water, the same said unto me, Upon whom thou shalt see the Spirit descending and remaining on him, the same is he which baptizeth with the Holy Ghost. And I saw and bare record that this is the Son of God. Again the next day after John stood, and two of his disciples, and looking upon Yahushua as he walked, he saith, Behold, the Lamb of Yah. And the two disciples heard him speak, and they followed Yahushua. Then Yahushua turned and saw them following, and said unto him, What seek ye? They said unto him, Rabbi, which is interpreted as Master, where dwellest thou? He saith unto them, Come and see. They came and saw where he dwelt, and abode with him that day, for it was about the 10th hour. One of the two which heard John speak and followed him was Andrew, Simon Peter's brother. He first findeth his own brother Simon, and saith unto him, We have found the Messiah, which is being interpreted, the Christ. And he brought him to Yahushua. And when Yahushua beheld him, he said, Thou art Simon, the son of Jonah. Thou shalt be called Cephas, which by interpretation is a stone. The day following Yahushua would go forth into Galilee, and findeth Philip, and saith unto him, Follow me. Now Philip was of Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip findeth Nathanael, and saith unto him, We have found him of whom Moses in the law and in the prophets did write, Yahushua of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. And Nathanael said unto him, Can there any good thing come out of Nazareth? Philip saith unto him, Come and see. Yahushua saw Nathanael coming to him, and saith of him, Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. Nathanael said unto him, Whence knowest thou me? Yahushua answered and said unto him, Before that Philip called thee, when thou wast under the fig tree, I saw thee. Nathanael answered and saith unto him, Rabbi, thou art the Son of Yah, thou art the King of Israel. Yahushua answered and said unto him, Because I said unto thee, I saw thee under the fig tree, believest thou? Thou shalt see greater things than these. And he saith unto him, Verily, verily, I say unto you, hereafter ye shall see heaven open, and the angels of Yah ascending and descending upon the Son of Man.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. So we can see the connection here to the Torah portion with that last verse there, and in the vision that Yaakov had when he was laying his head on the rock at the place that he called Bethel, and so we see this picture of Yeshua being the gate. He's the gate in the ladder. He is the way to Shemayim, to Elohim. And no one comes to the Father but through him. Does anybody have any thoughts or comments about that, or anything else that we've read today? Or if you have any questions about anything. Go ahead, Brother John.
Well, I just like the particularly of this section. I like verse 47, where it says that Yahushua saw Nathanael coming to him and said to him, Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom there is no guile. Right? I like that because he's like studying under this in this tree. He's studying, and I like to think that he's probably studying the scriptures, right? And like the whole circumstance. This is how I envision it. He's studying the scriptures under the tree, right? And Yahushua sees him, not even there. He's like far away, and he envisions him studying under a tree. And this is a true Israelite. He's I think Nathanael wasn't like the Pharisees of that time, and following some of these unnatural practices. That's not what I meant to say. Practices that aren't in the Torah, right? Nathanael at this point, Yahushua was saying, well, this guy, to look up at this guy, Nathanael, right? He is a model citizen, a model Israelite at this point. And I think that verse 47, right, gives us something to look forward to, that, we're not going to be, as, good as Yahushua, but that, but we can still be like, how it says, of whom there is no guile. I like that particular verse. That's all I had to say about that. I'm sorry.
I like what you said, brother, and it sounds good, but we don't know what it was doing. The Bible didn't say if he was studying the scriptures, if he was studying everything. Actually, he was actually asking a question that, can anything good come out? I mean, he had his doubts, because he's so truthful. He knows what's happening. So he's like, can anything, good come out? So, but I don't know. It's just, you would just leave it as it is, but it sounds good though. I just hope we leave it as it is.
Well, for me and stuff, I think you're right, Jacob, that it is asking a question, because probably that there was a lot of people that was, has come out of Nazareth before, and nothing good was coming out of that. But then possibly that's why they were asking it, because they found out something did come out of it, and that's Yeshua. So that, I think that you're right about that. They're questioning it, like really, does anything come out of Nazareth that is good? You know, like in that kind of accent, you know?
Because they've seen all the bad, probably, right?
Exactly my point. So that's probably why they were asking that.
I think too that there was a little bit more remnant of the northern tribes that were from that area too, and maybe some people that were mixed, you know, uh, and you know, ethnicity or whatever, and so they were, you know, there's probably some bias toward that area, you know. Anybody else have any thoughts or comments or questions about anything we've read today?
Yes, I have something that I saw that baffled me, and I just want to quickly go to it. He says, I mean, this is such a great testimony. On verse 43 says, and the day following, Yeshua would go forth into Galilee and findeth Philip and said unto him, follow me. Now Philip was from Bethsaida, the city of Andrew and Peter. Philip findeth Nathanael and said unto him, we have found him. What? You guys know what it means for these guys to profess this during this time of going on that the Sadducees and the Pharisees were like ruling everything? You know, that even John, you know, as you know, his ministry was in the wilderness because he pretty much wasn't welcome, you know, because of the, you know, the teachings that they were doing. You know, they were teaching traditions and everything that. So, but these guys right here were able to profess and say, we have found him of whom Moses in the Torah and the prophets did write, Yeshua. You know, Yeshua means in Hebrew, it means Yah is salvation. Am I correct? Right? Yah is salvation. Okay, Yah is salvation of Nazareth, the son of Joseph. So right there, from everything else the Pharisees were calling him, which was so bizarre. And then you see these guys, these were, whatever they were, fishermen or whatever they were, and they recognize him. That really baffles me, how they were able to recognize him. And then even Nathanael said, you know, when he said, whence knowest thou me? And Yeshua said, before that Philip called thee, when thou was under the fig tree, I saw thee. And even he himself, just that simple word that was given to him, Nathanael said unto him, Rabbi, thou art the word of Elohim. Thou art the King of Israel. This is amazing that the leaders, the ones that were in charge of teaching the Torah and establishing the Torah, could not recognize him. They couldn't see him. What they've been learning all their lives, standing before them, they called him devil, they called him all sorts of things. But you see this man who were probably looked down on, who were not, you know, in the higher ranks of the religious world, and they were able to confess right there. He says, Rabbi, thou art the son. Who else confessed this? This before Peter said this, Nathanael was saying this, that thou art the Son of God, thou art the King of Israel. And then he said, this is awesome. Yeshua said unto him, because I said unto thee, I saw thee under the fig tree, thou believest. So I had to tell you and convince you and let you know, say something that made you believe. He said, thou shalt see greater things than this, you know, and I believe that applies to us, because at one point he told Thomas that, you know what, because you touch my hand, now you believe. Like, these guys were still testing everything. And he says, you know, blessed are those who had seen not, but yet believe. That's us, a greater blessing. Hallelujah.
One thing that stuck out to me I don't know if I'm.
Anyone?
One thing.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
I don't know. I can't tell if I'm talking or not. But anyway, where he says, "Follow me," but in Hosea, back in Hosea chapter 14, verse 1, he says, "O Israel, return to Yahweh your Elohim, for you have stumbled in your crookedness." And I was reading that before this morning. It was kind of interesting that those verses came up today. 13:9, "O Israel, you have destroyed yourself, but in me is your help." And he says, "Return to me, your Elohim, for your iniquities of, you've stumbled because of your crookedness." So it was just interesting that we need to return to him, and he is our help, and he is the one that we need to go to. That's it.
Hallelujah.
Amen, brother. Thank you for sharing it. And welcome back, brother Ty. It's good to see you
Thank
back,
you,
brother.
Jacob. How are you?
Yeah, brother Jacob. He came all the way from California to Ava, Missouri, over here where I'm at.
Brother Ty, you from California?
I was in California. I've been to your house with Mark Knapp.
Okay. Oh, brother. Oh, my brother. How you doing? Okay. Good to hear your voice, man.
And now I'm in Ava, Missouri.
Okay. Can you please drag that brother Chris Cash out here when you're coming back?
Well, I don't know that I'm coming back, unfortunately.
Okay, well, still drag him out here if you can, please.
Well, brother Jacob, you want to share about your afternoon meeting this afternoon? What time are you doing that, brother?
We're going to be talking about the two witnesses. Just two witnesses, 2 or 3 witnesses. That's just what I thought we should all discuss. And then next week, we're going to talk about Behold the Man, who is Yeshua. Let's talk about Yeshua, the Messiah.
And what time are you guys meeting today?
We start at 1 o'clock Eastern time and 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, please.
Wouldn't it be the other way around?
Oh, yes. I don't understand why you guys have these daylights. In Africa, we don't have any of this confusion. Okay? It's just like, we just see the sun and we see the clock and we say it's 1 o'clock and it's 1 o'clock everywhere all over Africa. But you guys just have all these changes. It's just too much.
It's just confusion, brother. It's to keep the people confused.
I want to thank everybody for.
Brother Chris, can I just share something that I saw yesterday and I was sharing with everybody? I don't know why these little things get me so excited. Me and my brother John, it was like we felt like we found something that nobody has seen before, but I'm sure we've all seen it before. But we have been reading it so many times and we've never seen it. That we're going to talk about it this afternoon too, but I thought I'd just bring it up just in case some people who did not join it this afternoon just have it in mind. In the book of Exodus chapter 5 verse 1, one of the main reasons that Yahweh gave Pharaoh to let his children go was to go and keep a feast to him in the wilderness. And then he also said to serve him. So they're going to be serving him by keeping a feast. And he was talking about them keeping a feast to him while they were yet in Egypt. I mean, it just blows my mind that Father wants us to come out of Egypt to come and serve him
by meeting with him on his holy days, which are all about the Messiah, to tell us what he's coming to do and what he came to do. Like, it's just the entire gospel. I mean, I just still can't dissect it. When I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, he's calling them out to come and keep a feast, and we're still in the wilderness. So he's calling us out to come and keep a feast unto him, to come and meet with him and have a festival, an appointed time with him, so we can learn about what he's going to do and what he's coming to do at those specific appointed time. It is amazing to me, and I still can't get enough of it. I'm still excited about it.
Very good, brother. Yes. So I want to thank everyone for joining in today and for reading and sharing your thoughts and all, and sharing this time together. And I pray you have a wonderful remainder to your Shabbat and a good week. Shavua Tov. And,
Hey, Chris.
Shabbat Shalom.
Chris.